Good morning. And I am so fired up to bring you my friend who I met across the pond. And we met in Chris Doe's business clinic, which is why this episode of LinkedIn Live is called London Unlocked. Because and I'm talking about this woman, Natalka Talkowska, who is a 6-time TED Talk speaker. And she is also the founder of her own design company. And you're going to meet her in 1 second. But we met in London. And immediately it was like, boom, boom, boom. Like I vibe with you and you vibe with me. So we're going to bring you the greatest hits of what happened in London in this episode called London Unlocked from Chris Doe's business clinic. Thank you, Natalia, for being here. And what a treat. I mean, I know you're running a wildly successful business, servicing huge, huge global clients, Accenture, Google, Sony, Deloitte, and all of that. And having your key takeaways is not only going to be a treat for me, but a treat for everyone who, for understandable reasons, did not make it to London. So welcome.
Thank you so much, Lauren. I'm so excited to be here and dive into your world for a second. Fascinating. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I'm curious, right? With everything that you have going on, why did you make time and why did you pay to go to Chris Doe's business clinic? I mean, why was this something that you were willing to do outside of your regular, incredibly successful and busy life?
Because I know I don't know. I love to say that. I constantly want to learn. I know I don't know. There's so many things I can learn. I've been running the business now 12 years and I always learn. I always better myself. I'm always curious. And learning from people like Chris was as fascinating as I thought because I followed his work on YouTube where he's really big with the future group that he's running. And I found out about him through my amazing business coach, Brad Farris from last year, actually Chicago based. And he was like, you would totally vibe with Chris's content. I'm like, okay, who's Chris? And it just linked
I
me.
didn't know that you know Brad and that he's your business coach. I know Brad too. This is awesome.
We are all connected.
Yes. And Karen Blades, so happy to see you. Yes, you're going to hear some juicy bits. And so you were ready to come in and learn and all of that. But why did you want to learn from Chris Doe in particular? What was the thing that said, this is a do not miss?
I really love the way he teaches. It's to the point, it's succinct, it helps me to focus, it helps me to think clearer and do clearer. Sometimes I don't know if everyone can relate, but I want to do it all, I want to say it all, and it gets a bit messy in the head and too much. And I found him that he really clarifies my thinking, and he really makes a difference when you start listening to his teachings about sales and about business and branding yourself and all those things that all of us have to think about. So I really, really was sold into this way of teaching. It works for me.
Absolutely. And I want to just take a pause for a minute. We're talking about Chris Doe. We're talking about him like everybody in the world knows him, which in our world, it might seem like that. But in case you don't know Chris Doe, he is the founder of an organization called The Future. And his mission is to help 1 billion people do what they love and get paid for it. And how he does that is through his company called The Future, which is an online art school without the crippling debt. Now, if you are listening carefully, you can hear that I know his mission because he has simplified it and he has made it so clear and concise. So for all of you out there in job land, right? Simplicity works. simplicity works. And he talked a lot about that. He even showed us how he like took out extraneous words from sentences because people try to overcomplicate things. So I just wanted to put that out there in case there's somebody out there that doesn't know who Christo is. You're not alone. Please go follow him on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on he is really big on Instagram too. So he's a huge influencer for me, and I'm going to say for you too, Natalia, because I am right with you when I say I love to learn from Christo. He's a phenomenal teacher and brings in phenomenal experts. What were your 3 biggest takeaways? So I you know, like yay, yay, yay. Ooh, we have somebody here from Poland. Yay. So what I'm going to ask you is, for all those people that didn't make it to London, give us your highlights, your top 3 materials or takeaways that you, in your job search, in your career, need to incorporate. Like, these are not negotiable. These are must-haves.
There were so many. Where do I start? Where do I finish? Right? 2 intense days of knowledge. So I will try my best. And no, guys, that there's so much more than that. But it really struck me. One of the comments was all about listening better. And it's about how we show up in a conversation, in a communication, especially I would say if you're looking to get a new job and you're in conversations with other people. Listening is so important, and it sounds so easy, but I'm learning all the time to be more mindful, more present, not waiting to reply as someone speaks, and really, really pausing a bit, looking at my tone of voice. All these little things help us to present ourselves better, be a better communicator, and get out of that conversation more. So that's definitely one that I need to practice.
I want to literally drive this home, because I came back and I think I put a post up on LinkedIn saying, like, I thought I was a good listener, but when I was listening to him and how he listens, it was like next level. And one of the things that was really important in that listening process is listening to where the gaps are in what people are saying, in terms of if they're in a process where they are explaining something, you're listening for opportunities. You're listening for the gaps that they are sharing with you. But too often we are so busy with the next, and how that might apply to people in their search is, what are you listening for in networking conversations? What are they saying and what aren't they saying?
100%.
You should be really, really like honed into both what is available and what is not being said. And then that also creates the springboard for demonstrating that you are connecting with them, because now they've given you this information, and that allows you to show up differently so that you are on the same level.
100%. And it comes both ways, whether you're looking for a new opportunity and you're networking, you're meeting people. Treat it as a game, almost as an exercise. Be yourself, but try to note more, how am I behaving? How is this person behaving? Are there any even body language moments that I can read between the lines? And especially for us, when we have prospect calls or client calls, I'm always curious about what it is said that is not said. Where can I find that loophole? Where is that discomfort? Where is something exciting that we're not talking about? And really dive into it and be that sort of friendly communicator, rather than, as we said, waiting for my turn, right?
Oh gosh, we're getting a great comment here from the one and only Rachel. When I talk to a manager, I get the feeling that they are important. When I talk to a leader, I get the feeling that I'm important. This is really rooted in how leaders truly listen. That is, I mean, I literally like just got the chills, because that is a key nuance and differentiator. Leaders are excellent listeners and observers, right? And so when you're seeing people with a level of hesitancy or a level of willingness, that's a thread that you can either pull or be especially mindful of with respect to where you're going to go next in that conversation, or even in other ways, DMs. What are you listening for? I'm using air quotes, listening for in comments, and how could you pick that up? So a couple more from Shiana. I always thank you for being here. And Michelle, to a great point, listening for what isn't being said. Yeah. And Lizette, great to see you. Thank you so much. And Amy Horner, forever fan. I just am a huge fan of the Horner Corner. So that being said, what was your second important takeaway from this? I mean, I know this is a hard exercise, right?
It's hard. That leads me to asking better questions. And that is universal. Again, whether you're in a networking event, whether you're in a conversation about new job opportunity with your manager, whether you're pitching your services or speaking to a client, asking the right questions. And I was always like, what do you mean? Like, we all ask questions. I know how to ask questions,
Right.
not a big deal. And it is because it, first of all, ask as many as you can to figure it out where that person is, what are their needs and wants, where's their interest, what's going to into that conversation with you, what's going to lift their mood. It's again those little nuances that I haven't been thinking about as much in terms of intentionally. I feel like I've been doing them for many years, but some of them really I had to study. Am I asking that? Am I jumping too quickly here? Am I already answering without needing to answer anything? I just need to continue to ask questions and find out those interests, those wants and needs. And in our, of course, space, that's the outcomes that the client wants and the benefits that they want to get after working with us. So I find it fascinating how you can get better at that, and by literally exercising it.
I'm going to throw out this term that Chris used that I think we all need to incorporate in our question processing. He talks about it as diagnosing. You, before you go into any situation, diagnose first. A doctor doesn't just knock on your door and say, here's a prescription for this. Or a plumber doesn't come over to your house where there's a leak and immediately go to a place that they want to go. They need to ask you questions first in order to identify the root cause of what is behind whatever is going on. So I often, this just happened yesterday, I was talking to somebody who's interviewing for a final round, and they were talking about how they need to change a pricing structure, and they need to drive a transformation. I was like, well, why did they have to change the pricing structure to begin with? And she was like, I didn't ask that question. So sometimes we're so focused on the information that we forget that we need to backtrack a little bit in order to better understand what that landscape looks like. So, oh man, this is really a big one. Oh yes, better questions. If they aren't loaded or impactful for them, why are you asking it? It doesn't have to be a long question. It could be an observation. And so this is gold right here. And it's like, so I get so like crazy because it sounds like we're not saying anything new, right? Like, we know to listen and we know to ask questions, but like everything else, there's like that 100, 200, 300, even like 400 level if you're Chris Do. But the point here is that literally you should be assessing the information before you go in and ask the questions, so that you are able to do a better job of pinpointing what can unlock that next piece of information.
Totally. I mean, even from our world recently, taking, of course, into account all the learning as I go for many, many years now, I had a comment from a client, Natalia, you asked really good questions at the strategic part, at the first part of our conversation. I was like, yes. So it's really important to, for example, my job is to get them to that imaginative space of we've done it. How does that look like? Tell me more. What's needed? What's not? And I'm fascinated how it works. It brings people to a different space when we just ask. And I think at a human level, we all like to be asked questions.
Right. So that's what I was going to ask you. Do you remember the quote that Chris shared about why questions are so valuable to other people?
Oh, please remind me, because it was so much information.
They're the window into other people's world, right? When you're asking questions, what you're really saying in less obvious terms is, I'm interested in you. I care about you. I am curious about how you solve this problem. And it gives them a stage and a platform to be able to share that piece of themselves, which immediately starts to drive a different level of connection. Because if you're not asking good questions, they're going to be like, right? It's like they're not really that interested. And so this really, really is important, especially in the job search and networking. So before you go into any networking conversation, don't just like treat it like a coffee. As I always say, we're not there for the caffeine, right? Use it to really learn about this person, what makes them tick. Why are they even having coffee with you in the first place? Not just because you invited them. What do they hope to gain out of it? What would make this coffee the best coffee that they've ever had in their whole entire networking career, right? And so that's really great. Another comment, your questions are a critical factor in the way your customers perceive you. Ask smart questions, they think you're smart. Ask dumb ones, ... We can assume they're going to make those assumptions too. Third takeaway, Natalia, bring it home.
So many. I want to finish on something that hopefully we all can just remember to do a bit more: personal branding. We all need to work on that a bit more. And I'm coming with this from a very genuine place. I want everyone to be themselves. I want everyone to, whoever you are, however you communicate, where you're from, your background, that's all important. But I know so many people in my network, clients and friends and colleagues in the space, where they're brilliant. Their thoughts are brilliant, their knowledge, their experience in the world, but they're shy and they don't want to talk and they don't want to share, and there's just nothing out there. And I'm like, you're so brilliant, show yourself a bit more. So it just reaffirmed me how important it is to take care of your personal branding, show up, and that is down to have a great photograph on LinkedIn, have a great descriptor, show us what's your experience, what you're great at, connect with other people, put your history in there, show me something about yourself, start sharing in a very kind of, I would say, simple manner. Wherever is your platform of choice, start sharing your stories, whether that's Instagram or LinkedIn or YouTube. There's so many.
Okay, so I'm gonna bring some visual aids into this because I'm unwrapping my new Harvard Business magazine, and that's the title: Build Your Personal Brand. So there's a lot of information about personal branding, a ton of it. And so for the purpose of this conversation, help us understand the value of personal branding by way of it influencing credibility, trust, and also as a differentiator. So there's so many, I mean, there's 800 million people out there on LinkedIn. And sadly, most of them are not hip to this game. So give us the Natalia reasons why personal branding in your job search or in your career, right, is so not something that you can afford to miss.
It does come down to as well visual communication, which I can speak about, and I'm biased for hours. But there is something about I have only a few seconds, maybe even less these days, to figure it out who you are. Say I had a great conversation with you, or you had a great first interview, or you met someone at networking event. Where does everyone go these days? We go to LinkedIn for quickly. As much as I know in the kind of professional world, that's where we go. And what do I want to see? I would love to see your smiling face with a great photograph. I would love to see your full name. I would love to see a great title of whatever it is that you believe that you do. And it doesn't have to be a mouthful. It can be very simple. It can be one sentence. And but it's very important. That's my first almost impression. And from our perspective, I always like to play a bit with my personal branding in terms of the photograph that I use and the visuals and the background, and just to give people a snapshot of who I am and what they can expect from having an experience with me and the brand that I own. So even from the history that I remember, every time I connect with someone or someone's introduced to me, there's always a comment on, I love the visuals. Wow, you have such a great photo. And it might mean like nothing, but it does tell a story straight away without me saying, hi, I'm Natalia, having a chat. It just tells my story and gives you some expectations of how that communication can go. So I highly, highly recommend even turning your personal profile, even with the simplest changes, into something much more engaging, because we are all amazing. I'm sure everyone's listening today is a super interesting, amazing, knowledgeable, full of stories person. Please show it.
Exactly. So if you haven't heard me say this, I'm going to say it again. You have less than 6 seconds on LinkedIn before somebody decides whether to stay or to scroll. And so if they are there, keep them there. Don't send them away, because once they get there, and hopefully that personal brand is driving them there, give them the information that they need so that you are helping them to help you, right? You are just creating so much more work if you are not creating that experience for them and giving them what they're looking for. You're just literally making either your job search or whatever else is happening in your career like a steeper climb, because then they have to dig, and chances are they're not going to. So don't be the best kept secret and then expect that people are going to come find you, because those two things will not work in concert. You have to be able to put something out there that is deeply meaningful to them and meet them where they are. And I know I sadly had to miss the second day that a topic of conversation that came up with day 2 of the business clinic was about getting vulnerable. Can you share any of those pieces? Because I don't know about you, but I get a lot of pushback with people like, oh, I don't want to be vulnerable on LinkedIn. They're going to think I'm unprofessional. So can you speak to that?
I actually have a good examples of that. If anyone wants to jump into our newsletter, we have this journal kind of once a month. I need to get better because Lauren, you're so consistent. I need to learn from you a lot. But if you want to jump into it, it's we have a monthly journal, the CAP. And one of the articles that's been doing really the best so far in terms of vulnerability and connection for me in terms of comments was my article about I've never studied business, yet I'm running one. That's the title of it. So feel free to enjoy. And it's not to say, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm professional. Why are you hiring me? This is all a joke. No, it was to show that there's many, many, many ways to do what you want to do in life. It doesn't have to be one route. There's many different routes to what you want to do. Routes change, journeys change. You can have also like change of heart, what you want to do. I'm sure you, Lauren, help with that a lot on people's journeys, where to go next. And that article was so well received because I shared something vulnerable about myself, maybe that I shouldn't in the professional world, but people so connected with that and said, wow, this is brilliant. I never seen actually someone speaking out loud about it. And I think encourage a few more people on LinkedIn to do the same. So it is not about don't share something you're not comfortable with. No one's asking you to do that. But do open up a bit about your experiences, because we all sit behind our screens and we wonder if everyone else is feeling the way we feel, or think or do. And suddenly when we do share, everything seems a bit more normal, everything seems a bit more doable and achievable. So I do encourage that.
I want to share this. I cracked up when Chris said this at the business clinic. At the end of the day, which, just so you know, he left nothing on the table. He was exhausted at the end of the day. He just put his notebook down and said, "I'm done." Right? And he went overtime and answered all kinds of questions. But then he asked the audience in his vulnerable state. He said, "How did I do today?" Christo asked us, "How did I do today?" He said, "I'm Asian, so I need a grade." And I thought that was really like self-effacing. It was vulnerable. Even Chris Do needed to have some level of affirmation or validation. And we all do. We all do. And I just thought that was so wonderful that he made that available and didn't hold back and didn't pretend like, "Hey, I'm the man. And I just, totally, made this the most life-changing event," even though it was. But the point is that, that vulnerability and is an attraction, not a detraction or a repellent in any way. And what that means in your job search and as you're interviewing or network, if you have not come across this person or don't know how to do this or that, raise your hand and bring that up in a way that says, "You know what? I can be confident with my candor. I can be clear and transparent without having to hide and pretend that I'm a know-it-all. I'd rather be a learn-it-all than a know-it-all." So, Tim Hogan, we are all complex. So I think a personal brand comes back to simplicity as well. Find a few key values you want to associate with and hit them with regularity so it sticks. Oh my goodness. I love me some Tim Hogan. He is so awesome. And I think that this is so true. Do not overcomplicate this. Just get back to your roots. And Courtney Addy, if you're listening today, she is our guru on helping our clients distill down their top 3 values. And that is so important. It leads and is foundational for every piece of your search, even for your career, because if you don't align with the values with the people you're talking to, the job that you're looking for and the organization, it's probably not going to be a great fit. So I want to talk lastly about visual assets, because in your visual communication world, I know that this is something that you are completely bought into, but outside of your personal brand, I'm talking about ways that you can visualize your impact, specifically infographics, specifically with ways that you are able to support your value. Help us understand how this has worked with your clients to validate their authority, to validate their success, and to validate their impact. Like, help us understand why these things are game changers and why we in the career space need to start embracing them.
It's all about the story. I think at the core of it, we all connect with a story. I think none of us will care enough about endless pages of reports and graphs unless there's something we care about and connect with. And from studies and from data and times way before I even started the business, the first language that we ever spoken, of course, if you're lucky enough to see, is visual communication. And that's something that's universal, that's beyond any background or cultural background or anywhere you're from. If we're seeing something, we can connect with it, we can believe it. And how that translates into business is purely to help our clients articulate their messages. And usually these are special big messages they really want to hone on and drive home, whether that's a strategic internal piece of communication for the entire team to understand and buy into, whether that's a foot through the door to speak to the MP or an organization that the client cares about, or win a pitch. Whatever is the goal, we've seen time and time again, very strategically, and I always have to say that, not just pretty pictures, but strategically placed visual assets of all kinds that really bring it home for clients. So it's fascinating to me as well. I thought it's not going to be something that, let's say, opens the doors to the types of clients that we work with, but actually it blows my mind every day, the effect and the value that it brings. So forever biased and fascinated by this topic, way beyond what we do.
So I want to bring this home and relevant to those who are in their careers and in their markets. Everybody has a story, a success story. Maybe it's a sales story. Show the hockey stick. Show the increase. Don't tell me and have to repeat yourself. Use that as a way to telegraph that information so that you are saving yourself time and you are saving them time to be able to make a decision. This is super, super, super important because most people are not doing that. And so it can set you apart in your candidacy, unlike anybody else within the consideration set. You know, there's probably, it's like if you get 150 emails a day and you get one snail mail, you're going to remember the snail mail, right? Because not a lot of people are sending it. So where other people are zigging, go ahead and zag and take advantage of that to be able to literally lock in your impact. That is proof, and it's almost like a guarantee, because anybody, and I know that Chris talked about this too, which is so important, is anytime somebody is buying something, and if you're in this in the career space, they're buying you. If they're buying you, they want to mitigate risk. They are looking to overcome the question marks as to why and why not. So take away the concerns that are unspoken in that process, because everybody is asking the question quietly in their own heads. And they're asking that of you too when they're hiring you and you're working for them. So I'm sure, and I know because I've been all over your website, that part of that validation where you have all those client names isn't to talk to yourself. It's to tell other people, hey, by the way, yes, we do work with Deloitte. Yes, we do work with Accenture. Yes, we do work with Google. And that gives them the permission to say, you know what, I need to pick up the phone and call Natalia. So Erica Reckham, yes, it's all about perceived risk and ROI. Totally. Exactly. Those visual assets, the numbers. I mean, Erica is a brilliant resume writer. And the reason why she is such a diehard about driving those metrics is because that helps mitigate risk. Now you have a better story with validation behind it. So sadly, we are coming to the end of this. And thank you, everybody who came today, but mostly thank you to you, Natalia. I mean, if I could right now, I would come over and take you for coffee at Cafe Nero.
We'll have to do that. We'll have to do that next time you're in London or I'm in US. Let's just make it happen. Now we're connected.
We're connected.
In touch. Wonderful.
Everyone, follow Natalia on LinkedIn, and also you have a big Instagram following, right?
Yeah, so if you want to, Natalka Design everywhere on social, and for myself, Natalia Talkowska on LinkedIn. Do say hi, connect. We're just computer away, right apart. So these days it's very easy. Don't be shy.
And also, where can we go to YouTube and find your 6? I mean, this woman, 6. I don't know anybody that's done 6 TED Talks. And so when I'm going to do mine, guess who I'm going to be calling? Natalia. That's the way it goes. I'm telling you, I'm so fired up to hear your tricks and tips. You got a lot of practice. And so make sure that you find her on YouTube for her TED Talks, because they're amazing.
Again, they're all on Natalka Design YouTube. Sign up, subscribe, like, all that stuff. Enjoy.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thanks for making time during your busy day and your busy life. We love you and thank you so much. We're going to end this broadcast. Hang around for a couple minutes.
Thank you.